Matt, Adam, thanks so much for joining me today. We're here at HG's Digital Summit in Madrid. We've just come off the back of a hackathon where we've had 150 of HG's technology and product leaders getting hands-on with Replit. Some pretty amazing apps have been built, I'd say, in the last hour or so. Maybe before we start, we'd love you if you could just introduce yourselves. Maybe Matt, given you've traveled the furthest to get here, we'll start with you.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you. So my name is Matt, obviously lead developer relations at Replit. So just helping people build the best apps possible. That's pretty much the end of it. Yeah.
Awesome. And Adam?
Great. Doyle, thanks very much for organizing the conference. It's fantastic. I'm Adam. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Litera.
Cool. Awesome. So Matt, we've been talking a lot today about vibe coding, this new concept that's kind of emerged in the last, I guess, few weeks or so. It'd be great if you could explain a little bit about what vibe coding is, how it differs from normal software development, and how you're kind of enabling it at Replit.
Absolutely. At its foundation, vibe coding is just leaning on AI agents, where an agent is just an AI tool that takes action on your behalf to write most of the code, where you act as more of like a product manager or a designer or decision maker in the building process. And so vibe coding is really for everyone. You don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to have a technical background. You can dictate what you want your application to look like, what you want it to do, and then again, lean on those AI applications to AI agents to build the application. Now, Replit is a platform that enables vibe coding. We kind of provide a one-stop shop. You go to replit.com, you don't have to install anything, you don't have to configure anything. And you can use our tool agent to interact with natural language, build applications, and then deploy them live to the internet.
Cool, amazing. And Adam, I guess you've been vibe coding at Litera. You've been using Replit for a few months now. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, how you're using these types of tools to kind of transform the product development lifecycle at Litera, and how you're seeing that sort of accelerate the rate at which you're able to ship?
Yeah, well, we actually approached it like we would any other product. We looked at the entire function. We looked at the work that we do end to end. We looked at where there was friction, and then looked to where new tooling could help us solve some of the pain points that we've got in product management. So we took the entire software delivery lifecycle. We looked at it end to end. We mapped every single step, and we looked to see where there was tooling that could enhance areas of the process. And there was a few use cases that really kind of came to the top of that list. About developing user stories and requirements was one of the key ones. But also developing out rapid prototyping was one of the things that really kind of came up to the top of the list. So we were very fortunate through HG to be able to get access to Replit very early, explored it in terms of what it could do in terms of rapid prototyping, was absolutely blown away with its kind of potential to really get ideas out very quickly. We often talk about it at trying to get ideas out at the speed of thought rather than the speed of code. So that's really what we're kind of testing the tool to do. And what we're able to see is, from a product perspective, we're able to very clearly articulate what our vision is to solve a particular market problem very, very rapidly. And so we're using that to kind of develop a prototype. And then we take that and then use a series of AI tools to be able to further develop that product. So Replit is part of our overall kind of portfolio of software delivery tools that we use. So it's been going very well so far. We've one of the tools that we built was a kind of end-to-end prototype that we were able to develop in a couple of hours. I was able to hand that over to a product designer team. They were able to take that in a couple of weeks, turn that into a full end-to-end Figma of the experience that we're trying to build. And then that has now been turned in over to the engineering team that have got working code up 2 weeks after that. So it can kind of show you how quickly this is accelerating that overall software delivery lifecycle.
Just to give us a sense, if you run that same process a year ago before you had kind of access to these tools, like what did that look like for Litera, and kind of what's been the acceleration there going from 0 to 4 weeks now? What's the kind of quantum of change you've seen there?
Yeah, it would have easily been kind of a 6-month process, developing our very rudimentary wireframes, iterating on that, and then, writing out full user stories, and then doing several rounds of testing. What we're able to find with this vibe coding is that any changes that you want to make to the workflow or the experience, you're able to do very, very quickly and really articulate your vision to the engineers that are building the software. So it's been a massive acceleration for us.
Brilliant. And I know at Litera, so obviously you've been a leader in the legal tech space for a while now, and actually you've had AI products in market for kind of, 13, 15 years with Kira. But I guess now Gen AI is enabling this new wave of kind of value add for customers. I know that's a big focus for you. Can you talk about kind of how you're driving that, and I guess how tools like this are sort of enabling it as well?
So one of the fantastic things about Litera is we serve the end-to-end legal ecosystem. So everything from business development, pitching upfront, to opening a matter, to running a matter, and then finally closing a matter down. And what we've been looking at is how can we take generative AI technology and infuse it into every single part of the process. So really, we've got kind of 3 core focus areas that we're looking at from a generative AI perspective. How can we take our kind of rules-based engine and enhance them with generative AI capabilities to really make sure we're future-proofing our core engines that we've developed over the past 20 odd years. The second aspect is how we're taking existing features and adding generative AI features into existing products. And then the third is developing net new products that just weren't possible before generative AI. What we're finding is given that we've got that kind of distribution across the full end-to-end life cycle of how law firms run matters for their customers, being able to kind of infuse generative AI at each element of that process and be able to feed the context between each of those different sections has been something that gives us what we think is a real competitive advantage. So being able to take information about the legal work that you've been working on and feed that into things like business development outcomes, being able to take information from matter intake systems and feed that into the drafting process, that kind of virtual circle backed up by generative AI is really where we're kind of focused in on.
Fantastic. And I guess, Matt, something that people don't know about Replit often is that you actually started sort of, I guess, 6 or 7 years ago. You were a browser-based IDE, which was kind of pretty revolutionary at the time. But I guess in the last sort of 18 months or so, you've also seen this massive inflection point thanks to kind of Gen AI. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, the incremental value add that you're seeing from these kind of Gen AI features and kind of what that's done for your own transformation at Replit?
Absolutely. And I think that's an important point to mention is that Replit's been around for a while. Most of the other tools in the space are like brand new, but one of our biggest differentiators is that we have the platform, the Replit workspace. And anytime you open up a new app in Replit, whether that's with agent, whether it's on your own, you're getting the workspace. You can go to replit.com, you can install any language that you want to, any system dependency without adding anything on your machine. It's all running in the cloud. And then on top of that workspace, in like the last 9 months or so, all we did was drop on a system of AI agents that can then take the same actions as the users. And so when we talk about like, hey, this is agent, it's our junior developer, it actually is a junior developer in the sense that it has access to the same workspace that you would have access to if you're writing code. And that means it can do things like look at the console for errors. It can do things like take screenshots. And then we have the deployment infra. Everything that you deploy on Replit is backed by Google Cloud. So you're actually deploying to a production service. Same thing with Replit secrets. Those are backed by Google's secret auth surveys. We're just wrapping it and making it more user friendly. So really what you have, because we've been around for a while and you've spent a long time building this tech, is a completely functional development platform that anyone can go and access. And then we've completely democratized that by putting AI on top of it. And so, AI is really accenting. We're giving the developer access to the workspace, and it's accenting the functionality that really has been there all along.
Great. And that agent, I guess you developed it so quickly in the last kind of year or so. One of the themes we've explored today is kind of how that dramatically changes kind of SDLC and how you need to introduce kind of LLM ops to kind of monitor agents as they're built out. What's that been like for you as a transition? Kind of how's that changed process org versus kind of what you were developing, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago in the same space?
For sure. I mean, Replit's always been a pretty lean team. So we operate, I think, like 70 or 80 at the moment, and so we move fast. We have our AI team just constantly trying to improve features. Very flat org. I can contribute to the code base if I feel empowered to. Using AI tools, it's easier to understand the code base. I think that's one thing that we've seen is AI is not only great for building things, it's great for understanding things that already exist. So being able to go in and understand our code base, make a contribution, make a PR, anybody's capable of doing that at Replit, and that's one of the ways we're able to move so fast.
Great. And I guess kind of drawing parallels back to the legal space, we've seen kind of Replit agent, add so much more value and actually go from this kind of co-pilot model where Replit was a great tool for people previously. So actually it can just do large tasks on their behalf. And how do you see that sort of emerging in the legal tech space and kind of I guess as agents become more powerful, sort of taking on more of the workloads of kind of lawyers and freeing up their time to do higher value add tasks?
Yeah, it's definitely something we're focusing on at the moment. What we are seeing is like what we've seen with the software engineering industry, where people are actually liking the conversational interface to be able to develop software. We think that that is going to extend into other verticals as well, particularly into the legal vertical. So you can really imagine certain tasks that people are doing that would be better accomplished through a conversational chat interface, like the agent interface that's happening in Replit. So we are actively working on how we build out a number of those workflows to come directly within the same kind of conversational interface. So it's really, I would say, kind of setting a new standard in terms of how people are expecting to interact with software and what they want out of it. And it's a really exciting time to be able to see how these workflows are transforming. I'm a former lawyer myself. I practiced for a number of years, and one of the most satisfying things of this job for me is being able to see how we can completely re-engineer workflows that weren't possible to do before this technology. And I think, these kinds of software is helping us think differently around how we can solve those real world tasks for lawyers.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a really interesting point there that I guess having that domain expertise, I guess, is now helping you to be a much more effective product owner and product leader in this space, right? You kind of deeply understand those workflows. And as you start to build agents that actually can kind of automate more of that, I guess, how important are you finding that skill set, and how important do you think that will be going forward as we sort of enter this new world?
Yeah, it's critical for any product leader to have deep, domain expertise of the area that they're solving, really understanding their customers and understanding their pain points. It's a key to any kind of product management task. I think coming from that industry gives me a bit of a kind of unique perspective. I was on the lawyer side. I was also on the innovation side, so a buyer of legal technology and a developer of legal technology within law firms as well. So kind of got a very unique perspective on how all those kind of three things fit together. But I think it's absolutely critical to be able to do that. But tools like Replit are able to give those people with deep domain expertise amazing tools to be able to experiment with workflows and try things out and start testing them very early with the customers. And if things aren't working, you can, using natural language, actually change the workflow right in front of the customer where you're having that conversation, which is just mind blowing when you think about how you can get to a product that has exactly the right product market fit very, very quickly. So from that perspective, I think domain expertise is critical going forward.
Yeah, brilliant. Because we've been having this debate internally around kind of how does this play out in terms of agents becoming all powerful, or sort of foundation models moving up the stack and taking on these kind of horizontal general tasks. But I think the way that we think about it at HG is that actually these kind of vertical problems are quite kind of fractal, I guess. You get into fractal complexity when you get to really the edge cases of kind of what a lawyer does day to day or what a software engineer does day to day. I guess interested in your perspective on that, Matt. Kind of how do you see this unfolding in the software space in general as kind of agents become much more powerful?
For sure. Well, I think, people talk about AI a lot, and I think everyone is trying to find use cases for AI. Like, how do I build a business around this thing? Because everybody knows it's powerful. And what I've seen is that exactly what you just described, the most important thing is domain expertise and product knowledge, right? That is the product. Understanding your domain, understanding the real pain points that your customers have and how the product should work is the most important thing, because then you can go dictate to agents, hey, now I want you to do this thing. I think in the software engineering space, we're just seeing a democratization of the ability to create these applications. And so, whether it's coming up with a prototype, whether it's building a microservice or building something that you want to get in front of customers, now anybody can do it, right? And so your designer or your PM or, someone who knows something critical about this really bad workflow that takes a bunch of people's time can jump in and say, I'm going to fix that today, right? And I'm going to roll it out. And so that's like the most amazing thing to me. That's my favorite part of the job, is enabling people to do things like that. And I think, you could apply the same principles and the same problems to software development. There are things that are manual that take a lot of time. Moving forward, AI is going to be a tool that we can give software developers to augment their skills and build really great stuff that saves them time, allows them to focus on the important things.
Yeah, brilliant. So I think we kind of touched on domain expertise. The other thing that we kind of think about a lot here is the value of data. And I guess, Adam, at Latera, your long history in the legal tech space means you've built up pretty strong reserves of data, and actually for your AI products, you've got some very high quality sort of annotated data as well. How important are you finding that as you build out these new products in the legal tech space to sort of test and iterate and I guess prove accuracy as well?
It's hugely important. I think what we found is the more context that you can give to kind of models on a go-forward basis, the better the results that you get from it. So having that kind of proprietary data set is something that helps us. We're not kind of complacent on that, though. I don't think it is a head start. It's not a kind of deep moat for us. And what we're kind of making sure that we do is build out the kind of capabilities end to end around those data sets. So I think it gives us a kind of strong advantage. But it's not something that we're too complacent about either.
Keen to go on to this topic around sort of prototype to production. That's been discussed a lot today. So these tools like Replit are incredible for kind of spinning up a quick prototype. One of the criticisms we heard maybe is like, okay, actually getting something that's production ready and kind of enterprise grade takes a little bit longer. it sounds like, Adam, you kind of cracked that and you've got some processes around that for getting there in sort of a 4-week time frame. But Matt, how do you see your customer sort of solving that problem, and how do you go from Replit V1 prototype to something that's actually kind of production ready?
For sure. I think there are a few different parts to that. So first, excellent use case, build a prototype, hand it off to design. They probably are better at designing things. And then you hand it off to engineering. They're better at implementing things. And you have something production ready. That's already a massive leap in improvement. Second, I think there's a question of like, what is production ready? So say you need an internal tool, right? Like we just saw the hackathon today, individual built a document analyzer. You upload a PDF. It tells you if this document has certain legal criteria that they're looking for in their contracts. Built it in about 45 minutes. Maybe that's a good enough tool for them to use. Maybe it saves them 5 hours a week. Maybe it's a few tweaks away from being a tool that everyone on their team can use. We have private deployments, right? You can distribute that internally, and it saves the team 20 hours a week. So, there are maybe not production, but internal tool use spaces that are super valuable and can be built up in, days, not weeks. And then finally, all of our services, as I kind of mentioned, backed by Google Cloud. Our databases are backed by Neon, which is a production serverless Postgres database. We have users, we have a lot of B2B customers, but a lot of B2C users, they're getting thousands of users in their applications that they're deploying. And so like production kind of depends on what your definition of production is. Of course, engineers do great work. There will always be a place for, really specialized software engineering. And so it still does take time, but hopefully we can augment those other workflows as well.
Brilliant. And actually, yeah, that brings me on to the next point nicely, which is kind of how does this develop for software engineers? So you think there'll always be a place for software engineers. We hear sort of Kevin Scott, I think, on a podcast earlier this week, was saying like 95% of Microsoft code will be written by AI in the next sort of 5 years or so. What does that mean for software developers? And I guess, if I'm a junior software developer just starting out my career, kind of what would be your advice for someone in that space?
Yeah, amazing. Get this question a lot. And I mean, there's a lot of just like clickbait out there. Software engineers are going to be gone. You can clip this podcast, right? So that's what I said. But I think fundamentally what's happening is that the amount of code that AI is able to write autonomously, thanks to agents, thanks to better models, is increasing, and it's actually doubling about every 7 months. There's some pretty exponential data on that. And so what that means is that like a year ago, you had like tab autocomplete, and AI could write functions, and then now can write most of the applications. And so like, where does that trend continue? Well, maybe AI is writing microservices. Maybe it's building out full applications. What does that mean? Well, it means that now instead of doing the rote things, the rote processes that software engineers normally have to do, they can focus on orchestrating AI agents to get even more stuff done. And so I think it's really like any other automation in that it will fundamentally change our productivity as human beings. And I think one of the best positions to be in right now is an IC, maybe 5 or 6 years out of school, knows their domain super well, can take these tools and just execute, get stuff done. You could build your own company, right? You could be people talk about this stuff all the time. Replit's a good example. There are some other good examples out there of businesses that are making lots of money doing really good work with very few employees. And so I think it's really just a lever on productivity. And what is the advice for new grads? That IC I just talked about, 5 or 6 years out of school, they have a bunch of domain knowledge. That's the product they talked about earlier. However, because AI enables learning at a much more rapid rate, I wish I was still I wish I was in college still. I wouldn't have to go to any classes. And I'm sure they're going to work around that, right? But you can close that domain gap much faster with AI. How does this thing work? Say you're building an app with React. Explain to me how React works. Explain to me how this code works. Tell me about these principles. What are the security considerations I should be building into my application? You can just hammer questions and you can learn at a pace that it's never existed before in human history. So AI not only enables these ICs that have been around for quite some time, but it enables the domain knowledge gap to be closed through rapid learning.
And I guess presumably as you're a software engineer, you can kind of work at multiple levels of abstraction. So with Replit, we kind of abstract at one level. You can become more of a software composer, but the best composers are still going to be the people who can be the engineers and go all the way down the stack, I guess.
100%. I think there are multiple ways to approach that problem, but yeah.
Great. And Adam, maybe same question for you, I guess. how does this transform the product role, and maybe also how is it transforming your product organization as you kind of think about integrating these new tools?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk in the market around moving from kind of a product ownership kind of model to product composer kind of model, and that's something that we're very much seeing as well, and very much pushing to have the kind of product managers, really driving how we're actually developing the software going forward. So one of the other things that we've been talking about a lot is, as engineering capacity infinitely increases, we're going to need more product expertise to be able to meet that demand as well. So it's really kind of changing the kind of balance of Scrum teams, and there's a lot of talk today in the sessions around what does the Scrum team look like going forward. It's not going to look like what it has for the past 5-10 years. And what we are making sure that we're doing is kind of changing the face of our organization. So we have that kind of product expertise up front to be able to handle the extra engineering demand. But I would say it's an incredibly exciting time to be a product leader, because what you can get out so quickly now with the extra capabilities is going to be absolutely mind-blowing over the next couple of years.
Great, amazing. And maybe looking to the future, because I guess your product org transformation is part of a much broader kind of transformation that's going on at Litera. I guess, can you tell us a little bit about your ambitions for the next kind of couple of years and where you see this going, and yeah, how you plan to kind of fully transform the business with AI?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, the key focus for us is to transform the end-to-end workflow, infusing it with AI where it's sensible to do so. So we often talk about transforming the legal experience to be able to take the data that firms have around the matters, the people and the clients that they work on, and be able to use that as part of every part of the legal ecosystem. So what we're really seeing is, how do we transform all the disparate products and services that we have today into what is essentially skills that enables our clients, which is everyone from partners to junior lawyers to marketers to pricing experts to finance experts, to really use the full power of all of our data and solutions on their particular use case.
And I guess more internally, how you think about kind of enabling your teams with AI. I know you've recently rolled out other tools, and you're kind of getting AI throughout the organization. Kind of, can you give us a bit of a sense of the kind of that transformation that you're also driving as well?
Yeah, we've stood up an internal group looking at AI across every single function that we've got in the company. So obviously the focus is around product and development, but we're also looking around every other kind of part of the function. And we've pulled out internal experts from each of those functions to define what are the kind of highest value use cases to be able to tackle using AI across the entire business. So really, it's a complete end-to-end transformation of our company, which is really exciting.
Maybe final few questions. I guess one of the key themes we've heard today is velocity. So we talked about velocity everywhere across the business, and I guess we're also seeing this rapidly changing landscape in AI in general. As kind of leaders in your respective fields, kind of how do you think about defining a strategy when there's so much change going on, when like foundation models are developing at such a rate? Kind of, yeah, how do you think about kind of projecting over the next 3 to 5 years and developing that strategy?
For sure. So I work for Amjad and Michele, so that's our CEO and president of Replit, and the things that they emphasize include, taking ownership, moving fast, keeping a lean team. That's why we have a small team. What I talked about earlier, anybody can pitch in, contribute code, figure out how to make themselves useful, jump into domains that maybe they're not familiar with. If you see a need that needs to be met, these are like the characteristics that our leaders really espouse, and is what's allowed us to move so quickly and respond to changes in the market. Now, I think, what it needs to be able to build a great product is to understand exactly who you're building for and to talk to users. And so if you understand who you're building for and you know the people that you're building for, seeing how the market changes and seeing these new technologies that come up, it's kind of like, okay, well, like, how do I fit that into my worldview for who I'm building for to serve our users? And, like Amjad always says, right, our mission is to kind of empower the next billion software creators. And so, now anybody can be a software creator. It's like totally true. And every time we build, every time we think about our roadmap, it's like, how do we meet that goal? How do we serve that need? And yeah, that's kind of how Replit approaches that.
So kind of really clear vision, optimized for a rate of innovation rather than kind of certainty, and then in
Yeah,
hindsight.
I mean, AI is insane. At least we model out every week. The what we're doing changes every week, every month. But we keep a lean team. We have I work with the smartest people in the world, and like, how did I end up here? You know what I'm saying? And empowering those people, taking ownership, and it's amazing to see what we can build, staying staying lean that way.
Yeah, it is. Well, we've seen how amazing it is today. Adam, same question to you.
Yeah, so our mission is to transform the legal experience forever, and with the changes that are coming down with AI, we're constantly having to evolve what that looks like and what that feels like. So we are testing all the new foundational models as they come up and testing that against our kind of end-to-end workflows to see where we actually can change that legal experience, where we can do more, where we couldn't do before. So that's really, I think, the key to kind of defining a strategy over the next kind of 3 to 5 years is staying nimble, staying lean, and being able to kind of really move quickly when the technology changes. So, keeping core to that overall mission and being able to rapidly test and look at the new models as they come out, I think is key to that.
Brilliant. Well, it's a really exciting time to be in legal tech, and I think it's a really exciting time to be in software, and exciting for all of us to be in AI at the moment. So yeah, really appreciate the time. I appreciate you joining me. Matt, thanks again for flying over from San Francisco, and actually Adam from Miami. And yeah, look forward to working with you both on this AI transformation over the next few years.